Alright, this is my second check-in video, kind of documenting what I'm feeling with the TRT. So, before I get started, I did want to address something real quick. There's a comment on the last video that I think must have been deleted because I couldn't respond to it, but it was an individual asking if I was taking TRT because I had abused steroids for so long that now it has, messed up my testosterone levels. So obviously, for anybody who is paying attention to the other videos that I've made, like I did address all of this. I have been competing naturally my entire life. I've never taken pro-hormone SARMs, testosterone steroids, other steroids rather. I've never done any of this in the past. The TRT is, or this testosterone experience for me that I'm almost 3 weeks into, is my first time experiencing any of this in my life, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to document it. As far as why I have low testosterone, I couldn't say. From some things I've read and just kind of reflecting on what I've noticed the biggest dips in my energy and motivation and mood and things like that, I do feel like there's a possibility that it has something to do with the ulcerative colitis, but I don't know for sure. That's kind of my assumption though. But anyway, yeah, just wanted to throw that out there real quick in case that individual happens to watch this video, and also in case anybody else might be kind of jumping in as I'm making these videos and is unfamiliar with, I guess, the premise of all of this. So anyway, these videos are because I have been natural throughout my bodybuilding career, throughout my life. I've been doing this all naturally, and I wanted to be able to document every little thing. And there's a lot of, like, I've talked to people, and I have some idea of what may or may not be realistic, but I also feel like there's a lot of information out there that kind of I don't know, gives people a perception of what they should or shouldn't expect. But also, in my opinion, it seems like there's a lot of information that almost advocates pretty heavy doses with steroids. So I thought it'd be fun, and also for myself, and hopefully interesting for others, to document, I guess, my experience with the TRT, talk about the doses that I'm doing, talk about kind of week to week what I'm experiencing, how I'm feeling, and then as I get rolling a little bit with this, also documenting my my physique, showing off not just if I'm getting stronger, but if I'm growing, any of those things. So as for now, I believe last week when I made the video, I was talking about how I had seen no change in my weight. And it was literally the next morning, I woke up and I was up to 210. So about 4 to 5 pounds up overnight. And I sustained that 210 pounds throughout the week, dipped down to 209, I think on Saturday, and then back up to 210, had a little bit of treats over the weekend, a little bit of cookies and stuff. Back up to 210 this morning. Nothing crazy. I didn't go crazy this weekend just because I was already feeling a little bit bloated. I was very hungry, and kind of because I've been very regimented throughout the week with my diet, and I'm eating in, I guess, what would be probably a minor caloric deficit for me normally. I'm somewhere in the 3,000 to 3,200 calorie range at the moment. But I didn't want to change that because that was what I had been eating when I was doing all of my preliminary, I guess, evaluations with strength and, physique and all of that. So I wanted to see if I just kind of maintain those calories without bumping my calories up, how this impacts everything. So anyway, my weight is up about 4 to 5 pounds. But I feel like my body just feels kind of bloated at the moment. It's mostly in my midsection of my face that I notice it in terms of appearance, but in terms of feeling, I guess I feel very similarly. Like, I feel like I look very similar, and my body in the gym feels very similarly to how I would after a cheat meal. So the day after a cheat meal, with all the excess calories, all the extra sodium, all of that, I have a tendency to I feel kind of heavy. I get much better pumps when I'm training hard, but I don't feel as good. And especially when I'm doing cardio, like my body, like running especially, my body just feels heavy. And moving around, I just notice I feel kind of bloated and heavy. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I just feel like I feel a little bit bloated and heavy. I also have been monitoring my blood pressure. I don't recall if I said anything about that in the last video. I should have went back and watched it. I didn't. I'll do that in the future. But my blood pressure normally ranges from about 118 to 126 over about 70 to 72. Unless I have a cheat meal, a lot of times after a cheat meal, I will see the next day I'm more from like 133 up to about 140 over about 70 to 73. So this is over years. I've been paying attention to a lot of this. Right now, I'm monitoring my blood pressure about every other day. I generally would not check it that often. I'm just curious to see at what point things do and don't change. And so when my weight spiked, I noticed a blood pressure spike that was also kind of similar to the day after a cheat meal. I've been fluctuating. I've been seeing as low as 126 to as high as about, I think, 138. But my diastolic has been about 68 to 70. So that's a little bit different for me. I feel like I normally am always right around 70 or just over. I don't usually see that diastolic fluctuate even with, the extra food, which would make sense. Obviously, that's not going to be affected too much by a little extra fluid retention. So I'm thinking, and this is just me speculating, hypothesizing, that the little bit of an increase in blood pressure is due to a little bit of increase in just kind of some extra fluid retention at the moment. Now, my doctor did tell me to be prepared that probably around 2 weeks in, I would likely start to notice a little bit of bloating, water retention, things like that, that I'd have a little bit of a weight spike. But he also said by about 4 weeks, this should balance out. So he said not to be concerned about it unless I'm still seeing and feeling the same things by about 5 to 6 weeks in. And at that point, we can go ahead and talk about maybe lowering the dose of the TRT a little bit early, and or, they had said the possibility of aromatase inhibitor. That's not something I'm interested in doing. If it were something where even lowering the dose was still having me have some issues with blood pressure or anything like that, I would just discontinue, to be quite frank. At this point, I love that I feel more motivated, that I have more mental clarity, I have more energy. I'm not tired when I go to bed at night. Usually I'm tired by around 8 o'clock at night. There have been times, over the past couple of years where it's 7:30 and I got nothing left to do for the day, and I just go to bed at 7:30. But I would toss and turn a lot. I would try and prioritize sleep, but I'd wake up a lot in the middle of the night. I might have trouble falling asleep at night. Now I don't wake up at all in the middle of the night. I lay down. I feel like within a couple minutes of laying down, I'm out until I'm waking up in the morning. I don't set an alarm or anything, so my norm is I'm in bed by about 9. I wake up around 4:30 to 5. Last night I got to bed a little bit later, and I woke up a relative amount later. So I'm averaging about 7.5 hours of sleep a night, just without setting an alarm, but I feel like those hours of sleep are so much more productive than I was trying to get about 8 to 8.5 before, or at least I was in bed for 8 to 8.5, but I was feeling much more fatigued, and I was waking up a lot more, and this is 7.5 of just solid sleep, so that's awesome. I love that. I love, like I said, having more energy, more clarity, a little bit, I don't know if I have more motivation. I think I feel a little bit more motivated because I'm not getting tired in the middle of the day. But, so I love that element of it. But at the same time, there are things that I am concerned about. I don't want to have any issues with blood pressure. I don't want to feel bloated. I don't want to feel heavy when I'm trying to run and do things like that. I like to do more athletic stuff, and, I have fun doing all of that. So if this were something, in time that doesn't kind of balance out and sort itself out, I don't think that it would be for me. Obviously, I don't want to go back to being tired all the time either. So, but I might just have to see if there's another option, another route for me to see how I can feel good. As I had mentioned, and I believe, one of the past videos. Part of my interest in this too, though, is to see how it's going to impact bodybuilding for me, because I do love bodybuilding. I've been doing it for, competing for 16, 17 years, something like that, 16 years. Been training for 17 years, competing for 16. And I'd love to see what just that little bit would do for my physique, would do, in terms of at competitions and all of that. I think it'd all be interesting and fun, and of course that's the point of doing these videos, is I want to be able to document this as we go. But I guess, just being quite honest, I'm still not sold on this, and my health has to be my priority. So I guess I'm really just throwing this disclaimer out there right now, because I am a little bit apprehensive still. I'm seeing a couple things that I don't like right now with, like I said, just feeling a little bit bloated, feeling a little heavy when I run, and noticing that my blood pressure is slightly elevated. I'm hoping that the doctor's right, so I am going to give it at least a couple more weeks, see where we're at. I did actually already lower very slightly the dose for the testosterone, probably about 4 or 5 days ago. I was doing 0.13 milligrams daily, so that comes out to 182, 0.13 milliliters daily, so that comes out to 182 milligrams a week. I dropped it to 0.12, so I'm going to be averaging about 168 milligrams per week now, so it's going to be a little bit of a drop. I decided that, for me, I'm sure that's still going to be plenty to feel good, cognitively. I'm hoping that that'll be enough to, I don't know. I guess if things are going to balance out, they're going to balance out, but in my head, I'm like, if I'm already feeling kind of bloated and everything else, I'm like, maybe this is a little bit more than I need, and we'll try and go a little bit lower. I know I'm doing all of that without blood work, but I feel like I've talked to enough people, I've read enough to know that I'm definitely not going to have low testosterone, I don't think, at 168 milligrams a week still. So I'm sure that'll be more than enough for me to still have very adequate, if not high, testosterone levels. But I started at the 182, because they wanted 200. I was a little bit nervous about starting that high. So I had 180 in my head. 182 is just the easiest way to do it. Originally, I did have a calendar where I was doing 0.12 once a week, and then eventually I'm like, just do 0.13 every day. That'll be easy enough. By eventually, I mean after about probably 10 days. Just because I was being lazy, it was easier to do it that way. But after, kind of seeing what I'm seeing right now, I'm like, you know what, maybe I could even be a touch more conservative. So moving forward, I'm going to be at 168 for the time being. We'll see how that goes. Again, if at any point I adjust anything, I will talk about it. And this isn't based on blood work. I'm just kind of going by feel. I understand that messing with the dosage based on how I feel probably wouldn't be recommended, but I also think that the recommendation, just again from talking to a lot of people, seemed a little bit high. I've had buddies who have who take testosterone, who've gotten ready for pretty high level competitions, between 200 and 250 milligrams of testosterone per week. Now, they've been training for a very long time. They were already very competitive anyway, but I recognize that dose seems like you're getting more into the using steroids dose as opposed to the therapy dose at that point. So anyway, I'm just rambling. As of right now, a little bit better pumps in the gym. Definitely way more energy, more focus, way better sleep, phenomenally better sleep. I am getting a few pimples, I notice. Now, I could easily regulate that by just making sure that I'm good about showering whenever I break a sweat. I hadn't had to worry about that in the years, though, to be honest. Like, I could be kind of sweaty all day long, like light sweat, I mean. If I was gross, obviously, I'd want to shower. But also, for a long time, I wasn't showering if I didn't if I didn't work out that day. I usually wouldn't shower that day. I now notice I have to shower, even if I have to shower every day. I'm back to like I was doing in my 20s, where I use like a homemade coconut oil and sugar body scrub every day. That seems to help a lot. for me personally. But I'm back to having to do that again, and it seems like, my skin all of a sudden is much more sensitive like it used to be. I don't know if that's going to be part of the balancing things out or not, like that'll go away, but I am experiencing that. So very reminiscent of my 20s for me on that end. But anyway, better energy, better sleep, more focus. Some pimples, feel a little bit bloated, weight jumped up a little bit, and a slight increase in blood pressure. So I'm hoping that the weight will stabilize, that the blood pressure will stabilize, that I won't feel so bloated within another week to week and a half. Excuse me. Also, just because I've been curious, I have not checked any measurements on my body except for my biceps. That's the only thing that I care about. So when I started this, my bicep measurement cold, first thing in the morning, was 17 and 1/8. They're still 17 and 1/8 cold, first thing in the morning. So zero change there. Obviously, I wasn't anticipating that there'd be any increases in tissue at this point, but I was thinking that maybe I'd be starting to notice a little bit more nitrogen retention, which could possibly cause more muscle fullness. That hasn't happened at all. My midsection feels a little bit bloated, my face feels a little bit bloated. So yeah, again, I apologize for rambling, but that's all I'm seeing so far. So nothing crazy. A couple things that are awesome, a couple things that have me a little bit, apprehensive about all of this. I'm hoping that all balances out and regulates itself. So I would like to move forward and continue to see where this can go and document it. And again, I'd love to be able to just have the energy and focus all the time, but I gotta feel good. So we shall see how this week goes. And I will be checking in, I guess, in about a week.